I've basically been involved with horses all my life. And as a small child, I used to ride ponies, and every holiday we used to spend down in the Free State riding farm horses, just doing wild stuff. We didn't have saddles, we rode bareback and bridles, and I never had a formal riding education, but I learned that if you fell off you had to catch your horse in a very large area, so staying on was the best option.
I got on my bicycle and I cycled around and I found 2 horses in a veld, and I sat there waiting every single day in the afternoon for somebody to make their appearance, and then this girl came past and I said, "Are those your horses?" She said, "Yes." And she said, "Can you ride?" And I went, "Yes." And she put her bridle on the horse. I thought I'll go and show my mother how cool I am, and obviously I fell off in the garden. And she said to me, "Please go find a stable yard and go and learn how to ride before you kill yourself." So that's how it all started.
It's actually a briefly amusing story. We used to live in the rural parts of north of Joburg, and there was an old couple on the side of the road. My father used to give them a lift to town every day. They were down from Zim without a car, and they said in return they wanted to give me riding lessons. So that is sort of a barter system. It grew out of that.
I've always been around horses my entire life. My mom's always owned a yard, so as long as I can remember, there's always just been horses. There's not been a day that hasn't been with a horse.
The bond that I have with my horse is one based on trust.
I think it's quite special to know that my horses trust me enough to be around them, to feel safe around them. It's just something extremely special. Can't really compare it to anything else.
As an eventer, I ask my horse to do things that are considered dangerous. She jumps solid obstacles over uneven ground at speed with me. She has to trust that I'm not going to ask her to do something that she can't do and that is unsafe. And I have to trust that she is going to do what I ask her to do. So I really think our relationship is based on trust. Trust and mutual respect. People who don't have horses don't understand the relationship you have with a horse. But I always say to them, it's not that different to the relationship you have with your dog or your cat, excepting for the fact that you are doing things together where you could get hurt if your relationship is not good.
It's a wonderful privilege to own horses. It's immensely rewarding, but it is demanding. Financially, time-wise, it's a thing.
I think they don't realize that it's a lifelong commitment from what age they can become.
Horses are 24/7. If you need to be up all night because they're colicking, you're gonna be up all night.
I think that they are a 24/7 responsibility. I think that the most successful or the most important part of operating with horses is knowledge. The acquisition of knowledge is expensive. It's time consuming, it takes passion, it takes perhaps some humility.
My horses get fed, they get breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning. So when they're getting their breakfast, we take their temperatures, because we take temperatures twice a day because it's the best way to monitor the wellness of your horse. And I have a book going back very many years of temperatures recorded. And then after breakfast, they get their feet cleaned, and they're basically like a check over. And then they have their fly masks, or they put on, they get sprayed with fly spray, and then they go out into the paddocks.
And I'll ride them in the morning before I head off to work, and then they'll go in the paddock the rest of the day, get lunch, dinner, and then come in around 4 o'clock, 3:30 around there. So they're out all day just being a horse.
We feed 3 times a day, and the advantage of that is that the horses are being handled or looked at or operated with 3 times a day at the minimum. So they're fed at around 5:30 in the morning, between 5:30 and 6, then again at lunchtime, and then again in the evening.
They normally go out sort of between 7 and 8. It depends on what's happening in the day. If one of the horses being worked, then they'll stay in for the lesson, or that horse will get ridden, the other horses will go outside. They spend all day out in the paddocks, grazing, and they've got water and they've got shade. They've either got trees, and the paddocks that don't have trees have got covers for them so that they've got shade.
So we like to get every horse that's here on this property out 3 times. Once to be ridden, once to go on the horse walker or be lunged, and once in the paddocks. We like them to have a busy day. The most interesting thing about horses, if they lived in the wild, they are perambulatory creatures. So they would quietly walk and graze 15 to 16 hours a day. Then we keep them in a stable for more than 12 hours overnight. And that inhibits their walking, it inhibits a lot of things. So I think that if you can approximate as closely as possible how they would live, you're being kinder.
They get given their grass. They always have grass in their stables. And then they get fed at 4:45. And temperatures are taken again while they're being fed. So we take temperatures at pretty much the same time every day. And then at 5 o'clock we take out the feed bins, make sure that everyone has finished their food. And if it's winter, we put blankets on, or we just do like a final check that everybody's okay. And then I come down last thing in the evening before I go to bed. So I will come down normally about 10 o'clock. And check that the horses have nobody's knocked their water buckets over or finished all their water or run out of grass or is not looking well, and we give them carrots to make sure that everybody's, because if a horse refuses a carrot, then there's a cause to be concerned, and then they get left to sleep and rest for the night. We clean the water buckets in the stables. Every morning the water buckets are cleaned, and all of the paddocks have got a large water source, and that water source is checked when the horses are put out in the morning, made sure that it is filled up and it gets washed, because we rotate the paddocks. Every time we rotate the paddocks, we empty the water and refill it with fresh water.
They drink a lot of water and they should have access to water full time. Then they would normally browse and graze, so they would eat high bulk, low energy food over a sustained period of time, and that's how their stomach is designed to deal with food. So the more closely you get to how they would do it themselves, the better. So the most expensive part of feeding a horse, I think, is high quality grass or forage.
I buy my grass in bulk, so that I know that I've got good quality grass stored, and the horses are never left without grass to eat. They've got grazing in the paddocks, and when they're in the stable I make sure that they've got grass for them, and each horse is catered to individually. We're asking horses to do artificial things, so we keep them in an artificial environment, but I really think that when they are not working, their paddock time is their time. So I like to have very large paddocks, because the horses can then move around. Horses are designed to move. Their whole digestive system is based on fermentation, and it works best if the horses are moving. I mean, horses are notoriously gassy, but that's because their digestive system is a fermentation system. So moving is really, really good for horses. I mean, motion is lotion. It keeps everything moving and working properly. And also moving because they're grazing. So my paddocks are a mix of felt grass, and we've got some cuckoo, and every now and then I'll buy seeds and spread those out, because then the horses are moving and choosing what they're eating, and their heads are down, and horses that graze are happy horses.
Overall, they're horses. They're not supposed to be in cages. They need to gallop, they need to graze, they need to have friends, play. They need to just be horses.
Now, I think you're going to lead to a question about respecting the fact that they're herd animals. This level of horse, we only put one horse out in a paddock alone, but the paddocks are adjacent to each other. So they have a slight sense of being in a herd. They always go out together, and they go out where they can see other horses. But these highly fed, highly trained horses can injure themselves even more. So to avoid injury, we paddock horses individually. That's what I'm talking about is pretty common practice.
And I do maintain my paddocks. I fertilize my paddocks when it looks like it's going to rain. I generally fertilize my paddocks at least twice a year because it maintains the quality of the grazing. And that's what the compost heap is for. We take that compost and we put that onto the paddocks. And because I've got so many paddocks and I can rotate them, it means that the paddocks get fertilized, they get composted, and they rest so they can grow. And then I've got, well, the horses are using another group. So I've got 3 different groups of paddocks that the horses can rotate between, so that the paddocks have always got grass and the horses have always got nice grazing.
The paddocks needs to be secure. There mustn't be objects in the paddocks that can injure them. I think a free horse is a happy horse, but unfortunately, if it's not on a huge big farms with hills and dales, and then confined areas, those confined areas mustn't have any sharp things sticking out, or you need to make sure that when they're in a place, they need to be able to stay in a place and stay safe in the place.
They are fragile, and they are flight animals, so they can do really stupid things. So you've got to be as careful as possible about high quality facilities, safe paddocks, check your ground that there are no holes, remove anything that could cut or injure a horse. Again, that gets down to common sense and logic. And if you spend even a brief period around horses, you start working out how they will hurt themselves and in what way they'll injure themselves.
The stables are cleaned every day, the bedding is lifted, and so that the ground can dry, it's aired before we put the bedding back down again. I use a combination of straw and shavings because I find it's less dusty and it makes a really nice bed for the horses to lie on. My stables are also fully lined with rubber matting, so the horses, even if they do manage to move their bedding, they are not on concrete. Everything, when we clean the stables, we take the droppings and the dirty shavings and the dirty straw and we put it in the compost heap. And then the compost heap is maintained. It gets watered and it gets turned. And the thing about the chickens is that they control the bugs in the compost heap. It's like a biological insect control because I don't use any poisons of any sort because we've got owls in the area. So the chickens, their job is to help with insect pest control.
And new horse owners will definitely make the mistake of feeding a horse too much and underrating how much regular work is critical. In fact, as close to daily as possible is ideal.
I've got my qualifications. I've done my EQUOSA and my FEI. They've worked through nutrition. I think I've got a pretty good idea of what they need, and it's also becomes visible. You can see if the horse has not got enough energy, or it's too energetic, or it's losing condition, or its coat's not shining. So yeah, it's just, I think it's personal experience as well.
I buy and feed good quality grass, and all of the horses, their food, their rations that they get fed is determined by their workload, their age, and through discussion with an equine nutritionist as well as with my vet.
And I'm going to use the saying, "'Tis the eye of the master that maketh the horse fat." So really good horsemen see how their horses are looking and judge and evaluate. Nowadays, you have access to wonderful feed combinations. The horse feed factories are working for you. And if you're prepared to pay, you can buy top food for horses if you want to. So feeding is not as difficult as people make out. It's really, the more logical you are about it, the better. And the higher the quality food, the more you avoid problems. And you you touched on equine dentistry early. Good teeth go with good horse management. But it really is the eye of the master maketh the horse fat. All horses at a competition barn like this are fed individually based on their weight, their attitude, their performance, and their requirements. So you should have a tailor-made diet, just as you should for a human. What makes one person fat won't be enough for the next person. And that's a very important part of management. Also, knowing what the horse is eating, seeing if it's leaving food. Yeah, that's a daily thing that you might adjust often and a lot. And in between that, they get cleaned. They'll see a vet or a farrier or whatever. You can hear the noise of farriers behind me because the team of farriers is here shoeing and trimming the horse's feet.
The farrier comes every 5 weeks. The horses don't have shoes, so they're on a 5-weekly cycle. And it's in my diary, it's in my farrier's diary, it's religious. Every 5 weeks the farrier comes. Every 5th Thursday at 7 o'clock in the morning he is here. So the farrier is the dentist. It depends on the age of the horses as to or if they've got any problems with their teeth. But generally they're seen annually by the dentist because the horses here are all mature adult horses. Previously, when I had younger horses, they were seen every 6 months by the dentist.
They get AHS 1 and 2, usually at the end of the year around this time, October, November, December, and they'll get flu vax twice a year. So every 6 months they'll get a flu vac.
So these horses, well, it's compulsory that all horses get a twice annual flu vac. That's to prevent equine flu, which wasn't endemic in South Africa. And we had an outbreak and it's been suppressed and managed. We had an outbreak in the 80s. And then African horse sickness. We are victims of African horse sickness. On this very property, we haven't, touch wood, had a death, but every single neighbour's had a horse death from African horse sickness.
As per the law of the country and the rules and regulations for competition horses, so they get their flu vaccinations, they get their African horse sickness. I also do West Nile and rabies vaccination. And I get the vet out the moment there is any question that any of the horses are not well.
We're very spoilt in the northern suburbs of Joburg because there are a lot of people. We have a good access to vets. People who live far away must really struggle with veterinary access. But do you know why colic is so serious? You're gonna laugh because it's a really funny answer. They can't vomit. So whatever goes in one end has to work its way through. And because they're flight animals and they shut down their digestive system when they're stressed as a preparation to flight, that's what makes colic such a scary thing for any horseman. Recently at the Derby, you have up to 60-year-olds competing at a high level. So it's a sport that you can do for a very long time. And as everybody focuses, it's the only Olympic sport where men and women compete equally, which makes it a little special.
And the competition horses are ridden regularly. They worked or ridden or go to the hydro treadmill. There's some form of exercise involved.
They love routine. In other words, being fed at the same time, they're in the same way every day. They love being worked at the same time. An old vet said it to me, and it was wonderful advice. For the rest, good care, consistent exercise, consistent maintenance.
I work them more outside than in an arena. I think just being out is different for them. They get braver. Little things stop worrying them. They're not confined to, like, they're in a routine for their work, but they're not confined to circles and jumping all the time. I'll rather just go for a canter up a hill.
I also do groundwork with my horse, which it helps us with our bond from the ground. And it's nice to work with her and watch her working and moving and how she's using her body when I'm not on her back. It gives me a very good indication. So that's normally the thing I do on a Monday morning if we've had a competition on the weekend. Do some groundwork exercises, then I can see, is she a little bit stiff and tight? How is she moving? How's she using her body?
I think that hacking horses is critically important. It's a lovely way of exercising them in a stress-free way and changing the environment. If you go out in a hack, there's things for the horse to look at. And it's, for most horses, more enjoyable if they hack in a group, at least with the company of one other horse, preferably more.
We go out, we go for long hacks just to relax her, that it's not always a mental strain of being ridden and drilled and doing lessons. Just go out and enjoy ourselves.
And as you get older in the game like me, you realize that kindness is probably a paramount quality in working with horses, and then patience, endless patience. It's very interesting. Horses discipline each other incredibly violently. They'll bite and kick and draw blood. They even can break another horse's leg. And the best riders are very fast with their reprimand, but like horses, don't carry a grudge, because horses don't carry a grudge. They don't sulk. If they're cross with you, they let you know, deal with you, and move on immediately. And that would be a very good thing if us humans were like that and didn't sulk and be passive aggressive. I suppose they're more upfront, and they're far more objective than we are. Yeah, not manipulative.
I think anybody considering to get their first horse needs to have somebody to guide them. They need to have somebody trustworthy with a lot of experience and knowledge, because getting your first horse is a very risky business.
The biggest thing about them is to know that they are flight animals. They are not aggressive, they are not unkind, but because they're flight animals, they have the potential to be immensely dangerous.
I think they must definitely have an experienced enough coach or mentor to be able to go look at horses, make the right decisions, make sure it's suitable, and make sure that it's past the vetting, that you don't sit with a lame horse within 3 months, and that, of course, that it's suitable for whatever that rider wants to do.
So what they should do is enlist the help of an experienced horseman to either set up their property or keep your horse, if you do get a horse, with an experienced horse person, with decent, clean, safe facilities. And that gets down to logic, common sense, and bitter experience.
And then I really don't think first-time horse owners should keep their horses at home either. They should have their horses at a reputable yard and learn how to look after a horse before they think about taking it home.
I think you need to understand that if you take on the responsibility of the horse, that there will be a lot of costs involved, and that you need to be available. You can't just buy a horse, put it in a stable and think, okay, I can go there whenever I feel like it.
Expect the unexpected. It's not written in text. You'll have your ups and your downs, and you're going to just have to stick through them, because the partnership you get from them is worth it. Don't give up on them so easily, even when you want to.
There are plenty of resources. They can go to the college and do a stable management course and learn about the theory and the practicalities. It's a whole different thing to apply it in real life, but at least get informed, because unfortunately, knowledge is something that you acquire over time.
I think that any form of education is valid and valuable. This is the information age. Your generation is far better informed than mine was, but nothing to beat experience. Nowadays, you can look up and look at anything and everything from all over the world. So I see your generation is enlightened and far more educated. Then the other thing you do is exchange of information with fellow horse people at a horse show, at a competition. You listen to the successful people and try and absorb as much knowledge as possible.
But you only know what you know until you know better. And then when you know better, you have to do better. So you can acquire knowledge, you can acquire learning, you can educate yourself. And there are many, many resources available to people who want to do better. And there are people who don't know better. And that's where education is so important. All these outreach programs and the work that the Highveld Horse Care Unit do is the Coastal Horse Care Unit, all of those, that is educating people who don't know, because a lot of the time people don't know better. They really don't. And if we see somebody doing something wrong, it's up to us to find a diplomatic way to offer assistance, not criticism, in wherever we can, to try help improve the lives of the equines.
Yes. We can always be more helpful. And if a horse is being abused and you're not doing the abuse, but you're in the presence of it, is your responsibility to try and interrupt, to try and deflect. Your job is to respect or to guard all horses, not just the one you're riding. So if you see somebody else losing it, you could call them out and hopefully have a positive outcome. We're not good enough at that.
I think that the equine community, and it's quite a contradiction. I think the equine community could be kinder and less judgmental to each other, but at the same time, the equine community also needs to hold each other accountable. So we need to, instead of sitting and criticizing somebody, you could find a way to advise them and assist them. But at the same time, if somebody is doing something that you see as unethical or unkind, you need to be brave enough to stand up, especially for the horse. And people need to be held accountable, because we really need to be aware of our social license to operate. Horses have to be happy, willing participants in what we are doing with them. You have to take the well-being of the horse as the number one priority in everything that we do with our horses, and we need to hold each other accountable.
Ethical ownership is looking after a living, sentient creature, and looking after it as properly as you can, and making sure that your knowledge is broad and deep and valid for looking after a living creature. It would be like coming home from hospital with a new baby and not knowing what to feed it and not knowing how it should sleep or what it should do. It's just the same.
I think every horse is different, and maybe a carrot every night or a carrot when you come out the ring can change a lot for a horse. I know I've had horses that just appreciate the little things like that. Just coming and saying and giving them a pat and saying hello, and changes them completely than being just in a stable and being ignored or anything like that.
My particular horse has taught me, sure. Oh, she's taught me so much. She's taught me how to be patient, how to be extra respectful.
Patience, I think that's number one. A sense of humor.
How to be diplomatic. And to understand that it doesn't matter how well you've prepared or how well you think things are going. Horses are flight animals, and if your horse gets a fright, that takes priority in their brain. That's survival, and you just have to understand that is who they are. And
that I'm a slow learner, that I have been guilty of impatience. I think they heighten your sensitivity, and they are unbelievably educational. They're very, very forgiving creatures. They can operate in discomfort. They'll, even in pain, they'll try and do well or win a class. They are, you wind up admiring their generosity of spirit and their kindness and their courage. They're immensely brave.
Horses will give you something new and something random every single day, and when you have so many or manage so many, you will see new things every single day. You're gonna have to, you will learn all eventually, but I don't think there will ever be a day you won't learn something new about your horses or how to care for them. They're all different.
I think it should be people's happy place, as it costs a lot of money and it's a big responsibility. And I think if things isn't to your liking, you need to be able to be open enough to talk about it and speak to your stable manager or your coach about it. I think openness and honestness and taking responsibility yourself as a horse owner is also vitally important.